Blessings, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And I'm very happy today to have as a return guest, Darren. Is it Mel?
Yep. Darren.
Mel.
Yep.
Okay. And Darren is a minister, Protestant minister, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Associate pastor. So Protestant would be that fit that. Yep.
Okay. Last time, and what I'll do is I will in the description to this video, I'll put a link to the previous video that I did with Darren, where we talked a lot about gays against groomers. So today I wanted to talk about sort of the same topic, but maybe get into a little more detail, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Darren. Okay. And then I kind of like slides, so let's put the share screen on. There we go. Some of these, I'm sorry, Darren. When I put this slide presentation together, I think some of them we discussed earlier, but I think a lot of them are new because it seems like a lot of information came out after we spoke, and it's been interesting on Twitter. There seems like there's been a lot of discussion about sort of this. I've seen this hashtag LGBT without the T,
LG.
and yeah, so there's it doesn't just involve like the gays against groomers crowd, but other friends and allies have sort of um, grouped onto this as well. And maybe because I've got some slides, and maybe you'll be surprised by people that have jumped on their bandwagon. So just maybe this is a refresher for some people, but this is U.S. support for same-sex marriage from 1996, which at that time was 27%, and a couple of years ago, it's now 70. Oh, sorry about that. This is support for same-sex marriage by political party. So 83% with the Democrats and 55% with Republicans. But that's also on an upward trajectory from 97. This is by age group. And again, we're seeing an uphill trajectory. Of course, young people have the highest approval rates at 84, but also the older people at 60, and that's also going up. Percentage of, I always push this graph because I think it's really telling. This is high school students feeling persistently sad or hopeless. So, I mean, which you could classify as depression, I guess, clinical depression. So the highest group is LGBT at 75%, almost 76. Interesting enough, the lowest is males. Why is this surprising? Well, we've got all this gay inclusion in schools. This is interesting because these graphs, or I don't know what you'd call. What do you call these, Darren?
Propaganda.
Teaching aids.
Teaching aids. Yeah. Indoctrination aids. Yeah.
Sorry.
This one is a unicorn. The one before it was the genderbread person. And the genderbread person diagram was created by a gay marketing person, not someone who has childhood development or any psychology understanding, just gay marketing. So I call this propaganda. It's a religious belief system and how we relate to each other and who we are ontologically, anthropologically speaking. So this is just marketing by the Trans Student Education Resource Group.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh because this has got serious creepy groomer vibes, because they use a child-friendly cartoon-ish character as the conduit to get this stuff, indoctrinated. And people, I think, might think that this is fringe, because when I first started seeing this, I thought, well, this is at, Harvey Milk School in the Castro in San Francisco. They're probably using this, but I've seen it in Catholic schools, and Catholic, by a lot of people is regarded as, the most homophobic or whatever, Christian denomination, but they have used it as well. And at the Los Angeles Religious Education Congress down in LA, which gathers teachers, CCD teachers, clerics together. It's mainly an educational, resource, group of seminars, and they were promoting this. So it's not fringe.
Yeah, and you can see on it where it says other genders, and then sex assigned. That's language that they would use rather than observing what sex you are, as though it's assigned.
Yeah.
And then the emotionally attracted to leads to confusion, because you can be emotionally attracted to anybody, as in friends and brothers and sisters and parents. And so the categories that they're using here is completely ideological, and these are ideological aids for the LGBT lobby.
Yeah. And also we've seen, this is an older ad, because the whole Bud Light controversy erupted, but this is an older ad actually before Obergefell. So the normalization of homosexuality or the LGBT agenda is nothing new.
Yep.
Same thing with Coors. And same thing with Target. I've seen on Twitter a lot. I don't know how active people are on Twitter, but there was of course there was the campaign about Bud Light boycotting them, but I've also seen one against Target, because they're sort of, I don't shop at Target, but they're sort of promoting apparel for kids that's, I guess, LGBT Pride June month related.
Yeah, they've been for a while, and
they've been doing it for a while. Yeah.
Yep, they've been erasing the line between boys and girls toys, boys and girls clothes, to be more androgynous. And yep.
So this is pre-Obergefell. So I mean, I don't want to criticize people, but where have they been for the past, 7 years? It seems like the transgender craze has brought people out, but I don't know. It's to me it seems a little too little too late, but
yeah, I think I agree that it's coming into people's conscience now, that they can. It's like you start talking about the pink elephant. Don't think about a pink elephant, or you expose the red beetle, and then all of a sudden you see them everywhere. And so once you say, look, they've been advertising, corporate America is pushing this belief system, and once you start seeing it, you'll see it everywhere, especially in June, all over Facebook. Although I think Facebook and these ads, on Google ads and all the stuff on the Facebook and websites and what have you, I think they pegged me as a gay guy, because I get all these gay ads, because I keep up on the latest news and stuff in this space. And so they're pumping it to me all the time. Like every big corporate company has gay ads. So yeah, it seems like you'd have to have your head under a rock to not see it, but it's out
so
there.
the neocons want to boycott Target. Where were you 7 years ago? This is really interesting and fascinating to me. So this was just recently, May 13th. I don't know if people know who James Lindsay is. He's sort of a red pill, self-proclaimed sort of red pill, anti-woke commentator. I've listened to him, and he's got some interesting things to say, but I've noticed that recently, and I comment on his feed sometimes, or Twitter threads. I'm sorry, threads. But I'm a small fry, so I don't get responded to But this, if you look at the bottom, it shows you the interaction, and it got a lot of likes and retweets. So this is a meme, LGB, this person, I guess, tied to this anchor or ball and chain to the TQ. And I mean, the implication is clear. So I've seen this take place a lot, this hashtag LGBT without the T. So
you kind of missed it with putting the Q down there. It's be LGBTQ with the T pulling them down, because queer isn't anything new, but it's the radical transgender activism that's pulling them down. And I'm seeing, conservatives, quote unquote, partnering with LGB to take on the T, as though, the two aren't the same spirit that you're dealing with. It's still demonic licentiousness and rebellion against our creator. The whole alphabet there that they have is rebellion, and you can't pick and choose which letters you're going to call conservative enough to be my partner in declaring our values in culture and working towards a righteous government. So it's true that the T is exposing the whole thing, but it's what is this going to imply? That you can take the T off and LGB is fine, and that we can have a culture? Are we so normalized with the LGB that we don't even see it for what it is?
yes.
T is just a spiritual completion to the beginning of the alphabet.
Yeah.
So
I kind of was thinking about this in terms of Frankenstein. It's kind of the book or the movie, whichever, but it's sort of like blaming the monster and not criticizing Dr. Frankenstein, the one who actually created it. And as far as I'm concerned, because I'm Gen X, so I go way back, and a lot of these people I notice, like James Lindsay, are I don't know what you call them, millennials, or they're not
Gen Z is the youngest ones right now, but millennial, I'd put them in millennial camp.
Yeah, I think their experience is fairly narrow. I mean, I go way back, and I didn't see the trans movement at all in the 80s and 90s. I mean, people were transsexual, but I never saw this blurring. That came later, and that's an outgrowth of the LGBT movement. So you can't, yeah, I just don't know where they're coming from. It's sort of this gay is okay, trans is bad crew, and and these are not dumb people, but they're not being consistent. So
yeah, their philosophical and religious foundations aren't founded in the same scriptural basis that I think traditionally the word conservative has been based in. So we're getting both a pushback at transgenderism, which people see as a good thing, but then to partner with LGB, that means that you will compromise the virtue that scripture has to say, well, we need to be, stepping it back one step at a time, incrementalism. But the way I read scripture is that when leaven comes in, you throw out the whole batch, that's been ruined, and start over. And so to me, it's going back to, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to have inalienable rights from our creator? And what does it mean to be righteous? You're not righteous if you partner with LGB in fighting the T. Because you're not helping them. You're, in my opinion, when you bring in LGB into the conservative movement and say, well, we're fighting the T together, you're actually harming the LGB by saying, well, you're virtuous enough to fight this, but if you want to talk about having a plank in your eye, like the LGB attacking the T has a plank in their eye. they're not really qualified to take on the transgender issue. And those of us who are out of that, or those who have never gone into it and identify as Christian and live according to scripture, they should see that this isn't somebody that you bring into the fight. They're still bleeding out. They need their own triage and spiritual care. The LGB I'm speaking of, they need their spiritual care to restore them and redeem them and sanctify them before they get into the battle. Their identity is hellbound. And so to say, oh yeah, well, come and work with me, I feel like we're leveraging them as believers. We're leveraging people who are going to hell to fight our battles when we should really be helping them. And this kind of, to me, it's hypocrisy. It's Romans 12:9. It says, let your love be without hypocrisy, hate what is evil, cling to that which is good. And, oh, well, it's good enough that they're not transgender, and then they can fight for us. I'm like, no, to me, that just, it ranks of hypocrisy to me, to pull in someone who's in the same, historically up until last year, historically LGBT has always been the same group, and it is the same spirit of the world and of the enemy. And to just say, oh, you're healthy enough to come fight this spiritual battle against transgenderism, it's like, no, you're just leveraging someone, their passions against transgenderism. But then what are you doing to address? You just got to address the same-sex attraction, homosexuality, sodomy. What are we doing to address that? Like, oh, well, I've made peace with that, politically speaking. So to me, I can't do it, because I have compassion for those people as well. And what do they say? They say, well, we want a big tent in conservatism, and, we want to bring in the gays. I'm like, we need to minister to the gays, and they're not conserving anything. When they're coming into the battle, they're deceived, and they're being deceived. They're deceiving and being deceived, is what scripture says. They're the blind. So they're not going to be able to help lead the blind out, our culture, which is blind to the transgender issue, supposedly. Well, we're blind to the homosexuality, sodomy issue too. Yep. So they're not the ones that are going to be that to partner with, in my opinion. But I'm a pastor, not a politician. So
yeah. And I guess Lindsay is libertarian, and he's a self-proclaimed atheist. And I just wanted to say, you can also broach the subject without the religious dynamic. I remember when I was ministering at one of the gay events in San Francisco, and I was talking to a transgender person at MTF, and
male to female.
Yeah, and they were being very open and honest with me, because it's just a few years ago when I didn't quite understand a lot of the dynamics going on. And this person had a lot of enhancement, I don't know, surgery or modification above the belt, but not below. And I was sort of like, well, how does that work? And they said, well, I regard the penis as an elongated clitoris. And I had to think about that for a long time. And I was like, well, I go, that's crazy. But then I go, well, in the gay community, we regarded the anus as a vagina. So it's the same thing. It's just reimagining organs. So I don't blame them for making that leap, because we helped them do it. So.
Yep. Wow.
Gays against groomers, reject modernity, embrace tradition. I think we went over that. So it's kind of old school grooming versus new school. This is from Gays Against Groomers. Sexual orientation is determined through genetic, immunological, I always have trouble with this. Endocrinological. Sorry, guys. Epigenetic and hormonal interactions in the womb, and is determined before birth. They state that in the first sentence in the first paragraph so decisively that I'm like, then that statement is beyond reproach. This is the APA. I always get these confused. So this is the American Psychological Association. The American Psychiatric Association is the one that publishes the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. And they famously in 1973 removed the classification of homosexuality as a mental disorder. This is the APA,
and it's important to mention that they took it out of the DSM, not because the science had changed, but because the homosexual lobby was protesting them and pressured them. And so it was an ideological change. It wasn't a based in science change. So just throw that out there.
You're correct. And people that were actually even in favor of, in hindsight, that were in favor of removing it said that was the case. Yeah. So the APA says there is no consensus among scientists about the exact reasons that an individual develops a heterosexual, bisexual, gay, or lesbian orientation. So, I mean, even a pro-gay organization like the APA is like, okay, we can't make statements like that. They do. They throw it out there and just say, that's true. And that carries a lot of weight because I've tried to have discussions with people and they believe it's closed science, it's settled science.
Right.
You are born gay, end of discussion.
When I went and testified in Minnesota against the conversion therapy ban, one of the Democratic legislators said, well, you got your science, we got our science. We don't need to, pit science against each other. We're just going to move forward. So they didn't even want to hear anything that was counter to what they've already concluded because, the science is concluded, right?
But they don't have anything.
They don't know, but they don't even need to have the, yeah, they don't have anything, any science behind them, but they won't even have that discussion. They're like, well, every side has their science. So they're saying science doesn't matter. It's just, can't bring anything to testify about. Yeah. Milk.
Harvey Milk. This is in 1956. So I put this in here because the foundations of the LGBT movement are sketchy from the beginning. So it's kind of like old school, new school. And it's when you're framing it that way, it's kind of like, this is good, this is bad. Or like James Lindsay imagined it with the figure being pulled down. It's kind of like, we have something good here and you're dragging us down. Well, Harvey Milk and his biographer, who I met a couple of times, Randy Schultz admitted it in his book, read the book, The Mayor of Castor Street, that Harvey Milk had a penchant for younger guys. Harry Hay, who was one of the founding members of the Mattachine Society, which was the first gay rights group in the United States. He was a NAMBLA supporter, great guy. Allen Ginsberg, who wrote Howl, gay poet, also one of the leading members of the gay rights movement. This is particularly sadistic and disgusting. James Martin is a famous Jesuit, and here he's praising Allen Ginsberg. And here's a quote.
On your previous one, Joseph, the NAMBLA one.
Harry Hay.
Yeah. I just want to say that's the National Association of Man-Boy Love. So those are the pedophiles. For people that don't know what they're looking at, that's the pedophiles.
Sorry.
Right there.
Here's a quote from Allen Ginsberg. I'm a member of NAMBLA because I love boys too. So great foundation. I kind of put it this way. Margaret Sanger was a racist and a eugenicist, and pro-abortion people don't want to admit that she founded their movement.
Right.
And gay people don't want to admit that pedophiles founded their movement. So
yeah, well, in Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, they wanted to remove from our statutes around the definition of sexual orientation, we have an exclusion that says sexual orientation does not include adults who are attracted to minors, so that pedophilia couldn't be defined as a sexual orientation. And our transgender representative in Minnesota, Lee Finke, he wanted to take that out. And so that because it was discriminatory, having that in there. And so, yeah, they want to normalize pedophilia when they say, you're stigmatizing people that are attracted to minors. We should be stigmatizing it because it's evil. And they need help to be set free of that.
Yeah.
So,
and I've asked gay people, would you describe whatever the whole twink phenomena in the gay, and they won't. They won't. It's the sexualization or eroticization of underage boys. So they won't go there.
That's when I was groomed.
Yep. Mental health of non-heterosexual population. I guess I'm trying to chip away at the foundation of people like James Lindsay, who's saying gay good, trans bad, self-reported identification as a non-heterosexual, determined by both orientation and sexual partnership, was associated with unhappiness, neurotic disorders, overall depressive episodes, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive disorder, bipolar disorder, probable psychosis, and on and on. Oh. Sign me up.
It's very real.
Yeah. Suicide ideation. This is Australia. I just tried to put different countries in so people know that this is a kind of a worldwide phenomena. This was interesting too, diminishing perceived threat of AIDS and increasing sexual risks of HIV. So I was in the scene at the tail end of that. I left in 99, but I could see that there was a lot of self-destructive behaviors taking place despite the always persistent threat of AIDS. Comparison of sexual behavior patterns among men who have sex with men and heterosexual men and women. This is interesting. The results in this study were kind of difficult to untangle, but I tried. So they separated the results by age. So MSM for people, that's men who have sex with men. So I picked the 35 to 39 because it seems like nowadays that's when people are settling down and kind of marrying. I know it seems older, but that people are doing it older. So in that age group, 72% of gay men formed new partnerships within the past year. Among heterosexual men, that number was 21%. And among heterosexual women, it was 10%. Big difference. HIV, 78% of new HIV infection among males is in gay men. This is kind of where I kind of wanted to get to the core, maybe, of what I wanted to talk to you about. And I didn't particularly want you to defend these studies, but I just wanted your reaction to them. So this is the correlation between in a lot of scientific studies, you'll see CSA, so that's childhood sexual abuse. So the correlation between CSA and SSA, which is same-sex attraction. And I got interested in this because I was sexually abused as a child by a man, and but never considered it abuse, oddly enough. But a lot of people do that, gay men do that. And I noticed that in the gay world that there are a lot of men that were sexually abused as children, and although they might not they might not say it that way, that they might not say it in those terms, but if you ask them, they'll admit it. This was an interesting book. So it's kind of like the Bible for a lot of people that do research in this area. And I found this interesting. He wrote, boys, it is speculated, are reluctant to admit victimization because it clashes with the expectations of masculinity. The homosexual character of most abuse of boys may also inhibit disclosure, and the fact that public stereotypes have focused primarily on the risk to girls may have made parents and professionals less apt to identify abused boys. So a lot of men are not, and I think this is also true in the gay community, that a lot of men are not going to disclose the nature of their abuse, especially if it's homosexual.
I've spoken with someone whose father was abusing him, but he didn't see it as abuse. He didn't know it was abuse until he was an adult, and he just happened to be talking to somebody, and they're like, "No, that's abuse." He just thought that that was something that a dad and his son did, and they're like, his friend was like, "No, that's not normal. That's not what fathers do with sons." Um, you know,
No.
and so if you don't define it as abuse and you never thought of it as abuse, then you wouldn't know.
Do you know who George Takei is? Takai?
Oh,
Takai?
Star Trek. Yes.
I mean, I'm a Star Trek fan, and I remember years ago, I didn't know that he was on the Howard Stern show as a regular.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that interview. He's
Oh, 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 you know what I'm talking about.
talking about his camping experience.
Uh, and
Yep.
it's clearly abused because he's a minor, and
He's 13. Yeah.
somebody that was not a minor had sex with him, and he's like, "Oh no, it was fine." And I
Well,
think, and
sensual is how he tried to explain it.
yeah, and I think, well, yeah, children can't consent. And then I think that's an attitude that a lot of gay men have, that they've had sexual experiences as a minor with an adult, but they don't consider it abuse.
No, it's an awakening. It's showing them the ropes. It's helping them become who they really are. They see a lot of virtue, false virtues there. That's for sure.
I thought this was an interesting quote too. It was from a child actor that was in this famous film, Death in Venice, and he said, "I was just 16, and Visconti, who was the director, and the team took me to a gay nightclub. Almost all the crew were gay. The waiters at the club made me feel very uncomfortable. They looked at me uncompromisingly as if I was a nice meaty dish. It was the first of many such encounters." People don't realize that, and I don't know what the scene is in the gay world anymore because it's so much online. But I mean, I came out in 1988 and I was, 19 years old. And in those days, you had to like go to a gay bar, or something, or a gay club to meet gay men because you didn't have online stuff. And if you were young, like me, and you walked into a place like that, and you have to understand, like a lot of people like me at that age were vulnerable and had, either abuse histories or trauma history, like you talked about,
Mhm.
or bad relationships with their father or with other boys. And then you walk into a place like that and you have a lot of men that are interested in you. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. And I don't know what happens now, but that's what happened in my generation. And a lot of those boys got AIDS. So James Lindsay, that's what you're talking about. Gays against groomers, gender non-conforming youth overwhelmingly grow up to be gay and lesbian adults. Stop transing the gay away. This to me, when I first read it, is like, well, this groomer is upset that the other groomer is invading their turf. Like, stop, stop. stop this. These are we get to groom these people, not you.
Yeah. That's why I can't, you and I can't be gaslit. I keep telling people, I'm like, look, you don't understand. I used to be a gay man. I can't be gaslit by what they say. And they want to groom people into their identity so that they will have their boys that haven't gone through transing of the boys. So, they're just grooming in their way, and you're coming alongside and saying, well, let's just groom children this way. This is okay, but not this way. As if, we've spent decades picking our evil, what do they say? How do they say that? You got to pick your poison, no, we don't. We don't have to poison the children with either gay grooming or trans grooming. We don't have to do it. So
this message is powerful. It's convinced a lot of people. Psychosexual outcome of gender dysphoric children. I thought this was interesting because they said that these kids who get caught up in this transgender phenomena are gay. Oh, this says in the desistance group, so people that stopped transitioning, all of the girls, all of them, half the boys reported having a heterosexual orientation. So in my mind, that's like 75% were not gay.
And with the sudden onset gender dysphoria, with the girls is like a social contagion that just flies through social groups like bulimia and anorexia. And so I'm not surprised that it's 100% of the desister women or girls were heterosexual, because they're just getting into it out of the confusion, and that just seems like an answer. But with the boys, half of them being gay or identifying as gay, it seems to explain what we're experiencing in culture.
This is a lie. They're lying.
Yep.
Oh, check this out. Being gay is not a sin. It is natural human variation. Republicans should be denouncing this take. And of course, what was the take she had? Like, being a homosexual and proclaiming it proudly has zero place inside the Republican Party or within the conservative movement. I can see that argument being made. Well, here comes Gays Against Groomers chiming in. Fun fact: homosexuality is found in over 400 species on Earth. And I kind of thought about that. I thought, well, let me look at some other traits that are found in over 1,500 species on Earth. Cannibalism takes place. So, hey, I think we need to be cannibals. Come on, let's go for it.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad argument.
That's stupid.
Yeah. And saying that it's not a sin is also a religious statement, but whatever.
Yeah. I can't remember this person's name. Oh, Blair White. So Blair White is made the rounds of a lot of conservative podcasts. I don't know if you would say conservative, libertarian, classically liberal, conservative leaning podcasts like Tim Pool, the InfoWars guy. What's his name? What's his name?
I can see him. Alex
Jones.
Alex Jones. Yeah.
So, I thought that was interesting, because I thought this was sort of at the same time that the Dylan Mulvaney controversy was taking place. And I was like, well, that sort of transgender person is not okay. But this one that holds a pink gun is okay. So it's like, what am I missing here? What am I missing?
I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. It's too crazy. Passing, maybe. I don't know.
Well, what was said to me is that Dylan Mulvaney is trying to groom children and Blair White is not. But I don't see this. I don't see that. This is, as far as I can tell, this is grooming. This person has a large social media platform. They're pushing the transgender
They're splitting hairs.
phenomena. It's the same thing. I don't get it. What's the
Yeah,
difference?
there is no difference. It's splitting hairs on a bald guy. You know, it's the same thing, and they're trying to gaslight and say, well, this is bad, but this one isn't, and trying to normalize, jam you, you know, confuse you. It's certainly confusing, but it's all evil. It's denying that God created them male and female, and then saying that man can make and do whatever they want. You know, I mean, the
Because
whole
I think Blair White is probably a more effective advocate for transgenderism because Blair is quite glamorous and where looking at times, and where Dylan Mulvaney is more camp. So it's sort of like, don't get it. I don't get it.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Unless it's just the way they vote, like the log cabin Republicans. If you vote Republican, if you vote conservative, then we don't care what you do or what you promote. Well, here we go. This is the log cabin Republican gays against groomers. So they've infiltrated deep into the conservative movement.
Well, it just shows how far the quote unquote conservative movement has given up conservatism.
Yeah.
It's not like a crack in the foundation. It's like the whole thing has been swept by a tsunami, and they're rebuilding conservatism. But it's still progressive. It's
Sorry.
still LGBT. So
Here's MTG with another Gays Against Groomers. I had a wonderful evening and meeting. MTG was amazing. She's completely on board with the Gays Against Groomers message and ready to work with us.
fortunate.
Richard,
Grinnell.
yeah, Grinnell.
Yep.
Believe me, if Trump gets in 2024, he'll be there. This guy is sort of, I kind of wanted your opinion on him.
Oh, yeah.
Ollie London. So he's sort of taken Twitter by storm lately.
Yeah, he's all over my, yeah.
He's like a Milo Yiannopoulos
Friends are
2.0.
interact.
So, but he doesn't have I don't think the intelligence that Milo had. But I find this person interesting because, well, here he is on EWTN, which is a Catholic network. Now, EWTN wouldn't have me on, and I would not have appeared with blush. But this is okay, and I don't quite get it. He's wearing a rosary around his neck. I don't get this. Do you get it?
I'm sorry, Joseph, I do not. It's there's some things that baffle me, and that's one of them. Like EWTN, having him on, it's when people detransition and leave a radical life, I think the spiritually sound thing to do is to restore them and not platform them and leverage the life that they came out of and the experiences that they had until they're fully healed and ready to enter the battle. I don't think that Mr. London is his best place where that if he identifies as Christian would be to put him on the front page. I don't think that's healthy. But I can't vouch for his adherence to the Catholic religion or not. I'm not Catholic,
but see, you have a mature outlook, and I had this conversation about Chloe Cole. I don't know who you know.
I know. I know of her, and I have several friends that are working with her, and I've just pleaded with them, you know, that she herself, you know, is so young. She's right in the thick of things, and you know, she's starting movement, and it just, I've seen the weight of our culture land on people like that, and it really ruined them.
Yep.
So my compassion is for her, that she would, I mean, I don't mean to be, I don't know. It'd be great if she wasn't in the front lines right now. And
I
for
think
her
you and
sake. I'm just saying compassionately for her. You know, it's tough.
I think you and I are the only one with this opinion, because I've had the same discussion, and I'm like, I got out of gay in 1999, and I took a break for like 10 years. I didn't start ministering till about 2009, 2010,
Mhm.
because there was a lot of inner work. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. I need a lot of downtime, which is me and God, and just unraveling things. And this Ollie London is sort of just out of identifying as Korean and all these other things.
Right.
And now he's an advocate. And Chloe Cole, I think, is in a total separate category. She seems very sincere and a very nice person. She doesn't seem like a grifter at all. But like you, I worry about her because she's just out of that nightmare, and she needs time to process. And I wish the people around her would say, step back. This is just some advice to you, Chloe. Step back, work on yourself, take time, and maybe in a few years, if you want to come out, you've told your story, you've told it, and people that want to hear it, it's recorded and it's there for eternity. So people that want to hear it can hear it, but you need to look after yourself, because I've seen people burn out too.
Yep. And you know, the words that I've heard is that, you know, Chloe has a support group, and you know, and to me it's kind of like childhood actors and you hear all the horrors that childhood actors go through, and it's kind of like, you know, that, I mean, spiritually speaking, is it, you got a child, well, she's not overtly a Christian, so but yet I still feel for her because I know what cultural war will do to somebody. But you know, I just pray for her. And um
I've seen her reacting recently on Twitter to things that people that have like 500 followers are saying, and I'm like, ooh, this isn't good.
yeah, I've tried to encourage her on Twitter. That's where I've seen her stuff. And what I see her making are statements that don't have a strong logical basis. And it just sounds good, but in the end, it isn't going to be helpful to her. Um, and so, you know, I don't know where her mentors are. That's the thing. I don't see her being mentored by someone stronger than her. I see people coming alongside of her as friends, but
Yeah.
you know, what do I know? I'm on the outside. I just pray for her, you
We
know.
will pray for her, and I encourage
Yep.
people to do so too, because I think she's a brave, brave young lady. Joshua I don't know how to pronounce. This is somebody with the Daily Wire, and he is married to Spencer Klavan, who you might know from the Christian sphere. I agree with Matt. The left owns the gay pride movement, but what Log Cabin GOP and RNC are building is a direct challenge to the degenerate, anti-human insanity of that movement. In a few years, the gay right will be seen as an essential ally that's helping reclaim the culture.
I hope not, because what they'll claim us back to will, yeah, you can't have darkness fighting darkness, because what they're going to pull us back to is still going to be gay rights, gay family rights, and all of that. It, you know, it's like you're drawing a line in the sand after you've gone off the slope. It's, yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, there you go.
Michael Knowles, who is Catholic, works at the Daily Wire. My friend Austin Ruse is also Catholic, but he doesn't pull any punches. Massive problem: the normalization of homosexuality among conservative elites. This is Spencer Klavan holding hands with his love. The photo is liked by Michael Knowles. We can never accept this.
Well, you know, that's where Dave Rubin, when he came out as, you know, married and adopting or having a child, and all of a sudden all these conservative people are praising him. that was an eye opener for me. That was a little bit before this. I don't know what to say other than that's not love. And it's not going to, I don't know, it doesn't lead to good things. So,
Oh, Charlie Kirk. This is from 2019, but I thought this was interesting. Boom. Today, Botswana decriminalized homosexuality. President Trump's global push to decriminalize homosexuality is achieving results across the world. What did he write on the bottom? Oh, will CNN and MSNBC give his administration any credit for this monumental achievement? Despite that, it's kind of like American cultural imperialism. I mean, Botswana is an independent sovereign country.
yeah, Charlie Kirk with TPUSA and quote unquote this new conservative young movement in the Republican Party that embraces the log cabins. It's pretty much the secular humanist Christian synchronization. It's the secular Republicans and the quote unquote Christians are hypocrites because they're partnering with homosexuals, those who practice sodomy, which is an abomination before God, and saying, well, this is a big tent and we can bring this in and still call ourselves conservative. They're not conserving anything. They're conserving pretty much their pocketbooks. It's like fiscal conservatism. That's about all that they have left. And the older generation, the Christian conservatism, I think has given up, as far as I can tell. They've left and they've given it over to the younger crowd. And here we are. It's the next generation taking over the politics, and they don't have a moral leg to stand on to fight the transgender cult. You can't bring in LGB and fight T because it's the same religion. It's the same rebellion against our creator, and it's still licentiousness, and it'll always breed tyranny. So Charlie is falling short when he brings in gay guys to be part of his conservative movement and, chastise Christians for saying that we shouldn't have homosexual practicing individuals in a conservative movement. But that's the new libertarian. I've seen it in Minnesota, took over the Republicans here.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And this is a first world white person telling Black people what to do. And I've seen this in Catholicism, where I thought it was just racist from a liberal point of view, where some pro-gay bishops and priests were saying, well, the thing that's holding back the acceptance of homosexuality in the Catholic Church is the Catholics in Africa. And I was like, well, gee, that's racist.
Where HIV is decimating countries, they're not oblivious to where that's coming from. So
I have to say this one shocked me because I thought Candace Owens was smarter than this. When did being lesbian or gay become an entire annoying personality? Well, kind of from the beginning, Candace. In the 90s, people were just gay or lesbian and went about their business like normal people. Today, it's an entire act featuring rainbow sprinkles, confetti parades, and sexual debauchery obnoxious. As somebody who was gay in the 90s, gay and lesbian people did not mind their own business in the 90s.
no, she just didn't see it then.
I guess she was alive, but she was a little kid.
Yeah.
But read a book, Candace.
Well, but then in the 90s, that's Will and Grace, right?
Yeah.
So it's portrayed. So she got groomed into that through Will and Grace. Right?
So this is the 80s. So they're minding their own business. This is 89 at St. Patrick's Cathedral when ACT UP stormed the church during mass. They were also minding their own business. And this is the 90s. All these people were minding their own business. So, here we got, who do we got here? Madonna, Roseanne, everybody that was promoting all that stuff. Katie Lang. They were all minding their own business. RuPaul's down here somewhere. So
why is Simba
Oh, let me see. Simba.
Simba and Timon. Why are they?
Oh, well, because I have mentioned that to straight people, and I was like, because I was out at that time, everybody regarded them as gay. It was a gay couple, you know.
Huh. So the bird cage. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I missed that one now that I'm looking at it. Okay. Disney's not grooming.
This is the face of, I just kind of wanted to throw this out here too. This has gone into the Catholic Church as well. This is the Juan Carlos Cruz. So he is a advocate in the Catholic Church for pre-sex abuse victims, and Pope Francis has appointed him to a fairly high level position in the Vatican as an advocate for pre-sex abuse survivors. Here he is at the GLAAD Awards.
Is he a Jesuit?
No, he's a layperson.
Okay, layperson. Got it.
Here's this summer at Fordham University in New York. They're going to have a seminar on raising LGBT Catholic children.
Oh, well, we've got that in the Protestant too, raising LGBT children
Really?
all over here in Minnesota. Yeah, Press and Sprinkle.
Oh, dear.
Oh, Brandon.
Oh, you know Brandon?
Oh, yeah.
He's a good guy.
Great guy. Amazing guy.
Amazing guy. Here we go. Same-sex attraction and CSA. Can we take a deep dive into this for a little bit? You got time?
Yep.
Okay. I got a lot of studies here. I want to get these in a more manageable, put them in a more manageable organization so people can read them. Let's see. Information extracted from 1,300 face-to-face interviews clearly showed that those with same-sex sexual or bisexual orientation were more likely to have experienced negative events in childhood. Associate professor, people who have experienced sexual abuse as children were 3 times more likely to identify themselves as homosexual or bisexual than those who had not experienced abuse. 43% of males with same-sex attraction reported sexual activity with another male. Oh, man, I haven't read this in a long time. With another male during the ages of 10 to 12. Jeez, okay.
Yeah, you're gonna send this one to me. I know a couple weeks ago I was working with someone and we had similar statistics, and I just want to see if this is the same one or a different one.
A large national survey of almost 35,000 Americans showed that more than 3 times as many men and women who have been sexually abused as children became same-sex attracted. 58% of male adolescents who later became same-sex attracted suffered sexual abuse as children. This report describes the higher prevalence of contacts of childhood sexual abuse among men who have sex with men across 3 different independent qualitative studies. 37% of participants reported they had been encouraged or forced to have sexual contact before the age of 19 with an older or more powerful partner. In research with 942 non-clinical adults, here's the part. 46% of homosexual men, in contrast to 7% of heterosexual men, reported homosexual molestation. More than half of both case and control patients reported a sexual act with a male by age 16 years. Approximately 20% by age 10. More than half. Oh. Okay, I think we see where this is going. Boys victimized by older men.
You've got a list. You've got a list of research.
Were over 4 times more likely to be currently engaged in homosexual activity than non-victims. Okay, let's just speed through that. CSA prevalence. 50 men reported sexual experiences for age 17.
And it's important to if these are when you're looking at science, and research and stuff, is it interviews with people recalling their past childhood, or is it interviewing children, or teenagers in that age, right? And so which one, how did they frame the questions, how they frame the interview, stuff like that, they'll have different outcomes too. It's not like there's one standard way to ask about abuse as a child.
So let's leave it with this one. Male sexual minority individuals were almost 5 times more likely to experience childhood sexual abuse. So these are a lot of different studies done by different people at different times, but they all found a correlation between childhood sexual abuse and same-sex attraction. And then people online, Twitter, say, well, you need to know the difference between correlation and causation. Well, I think this is clear that this played a role in causation. It's very clear. And you know what's interesting too is that, and I wanted your reaction to this, is that there's a lot of denial in the gay community. So a lot of times, and I kind of play this game, I know how to do it on social media. I'll just say, well, the majority of gay men were sexually abused as children. And then somebody will inevitably go, well, that's not true. Where's the proof? So I'll throw the studies out, and then people will go, well, the studies are flawed. They're flawed studies. So they can't accept the truth either way. If you show them the proof, they say the proof is not true. They won't accept it. They won't accept it. Either they've been abused themselves and they can't deal with it, or they just know it's the truth and they can't deal with it.
Yeah, as I told you earlier, when we were testifying in Minnesota, the legislators just kind of, oh, well, you got science, we got science, we're just going to agree to disagree kind of thing. If you pursue truth, and if you're a truth seeker, you will want to know the truth. And looking at research papers like all those that you had listed is a virtuous thing to do. But to just dismiss it and say, oh, people can't, you can't take a list of that and dismiss it and just say, oh, those are, inaccurate or something. That's someone who's ignoring the truth. They don't want to know the truth. And I guess we can't be too surprised by that, but.
No. And the reason I brought that up, and I'm going to let you go, Darren, because I kept.
Yep.
But the reason I brought that up is because it seems like there's this movement in conservatism or classical liberalism or libertarianism, is that, gay is okay. And, the problem is within trans. But clearly gay is not okay, because that's a community that, and you mentioned the word trauma, that has experienced a lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. And just by telling these people, oh, you're okay, that's not helping anybody.
Yeah, I want to have compassion on people. And the truth, well, because we both left the gay identity and gay lifestyle and are following Christ, and we know what sanctification is, we want to reconcile people to their creator. And we have what the world would say is research and science, and that's supposed to be an on-ramp to healing. And we want to help people. We want to bring them over to healing, but the world just rejects even any of that science as bigoted and hateful. You come out with a research study showing that the girls, the 100% of the girls were heterosexual that had gender identity issues. If you show it's rapid onset and it's a social contagion, oh, you're homophobic, you're transphobic. No, it's just, this is really a social contagion, and let's talk about it, but you're not allowed to talk about it. And that's not giving people the opportunity to figure out if that life is really who they are. They talk about being your authentic self, but if you bring up anything that might show, you know what, Darren, your authentic self isn't actually a gay man. Oh, I don't want to listen to that. Well, what do you mean? If I'm believing a lie, I want to know the truth, but that's the way that I'm bent. I'm a truth seeker. I don't want to be deceived and continue to be deceived. I want to know the truth. And, the thing that we're both scratching our head in has throughout the interview has been, why do people want to remain deceived? And the only thing that I know scripturally speaking is that God gave them over to a deluding spirit, a deceiving spirit, and that they will be deceived. And so we pray for them that God will grant them repentance. So, sorry, it's my pastor side coming out.
But, and I think it's just easier and people get comfortable in their lives, even about themselves. So it's tough to challenge yourself. And I've talked to psychiatrists and psychologists, and they've all said to me that even if gay people, have no interest in exploring their homosexuality and changing it, decreasing the
Yep.
desire, whatever, if they were to at least, seek out some sort of therapy for their childhood trauma, that other things would get better too.
And that definitely has been a common thing in the ministry space with the people that I do ministry with. Several people have, like, let's not address the LGBT issue. I'm just struggling with pornography. And so they want to get set free of pornography. And so once they start exploring the reasons that they're acting out that way, then all of a sudden the homosexuality is resolved, and because it wasn't about homosexuality, it wasn't about pornography, it was about brokenness and childhood trauma, and reprocessing that with someone who understands and has been through it and has been healed and understands recovery and healing. Yeah, you can experience change.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for dedicating so much time to me in this discussion, and hopefully we can talk again.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a great day.